We're back.
Hi, Daphne.
Hi, Gail.
How are you?
It's so weird saying that. Hi, Gail.
Hi, Daphne.
Because she's my mom. But it's normal for her to be like, hey, Daphne. But it's not normal for me to be like, hey, Gail.
Unless you're mad at me.
Yeah, but it pisses you off when I'm mad at you and call you Gail. So it's not normal that we're in a good moment in time, a great relationship. And I'm like, hi, Gail.
Hi, Gail. It's your birthday.
No party like it's your birthday.
It's not. It's not.
It's not. You still have a few more months.
Yeah.
Like next year kind of months.
Like several months.
I have a birthday this year, though.
You do.
Yeah.
We're totally off.
Off.
So I, after work today, I went and got my shoulder worked on because my shoulder's dying. My shoulder's been killing me. And I've been getting this MagnaWave therapy. So I'm going to be super relaxed because it makes you really relaxed because it MagnaWaves your whole body.
Okay, good. As long as you give me some oomph.
Well, I will give you some oomph, but I'm just giving you the heads up that also I'm going to be relaxed oomphy.
Okay. Be relaxed umphy. That's cool with me. You don't have to be high-strung umphy to be umphy.
So the place that I have been going is called Focus Athletics, and it's nfocusathletics.com. So giving Gina a big shout out. She works on horses, dogs, people, and if you have pain anywhere, it's amazing, incredible. You have to do like a stacking session. So you do like 3 in a row, like back to back to back within a couple of days of each other. And then after that, you can go like once a month. And it's like, it takes all your pain away and it helps you sleep, which is also cool because I don't sleep.
But it's like a spot thing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a targeted area that she works on.
Yeah. And she does your whole body too.
Okay. But you just specifically go for your shoulder, yeah?
Yeah, but she does like, so it's my shoulders. So then she does like both of my shoulders and like my biceps and stuff. And then because, you know, it's that cross body thing. So then when one thing hurts, then things on the other side start hurting because you're overcompensating. So today she also did my knee and then she did my hands because I got a little arthritis in my thumb. And then it's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah,
so,
my dad does it on his feet and he raves about it every time after he gets it done. And my dad's had several rounds of foot surgery and has bone spurs grinded off his feet every so often. And
ouch.
Yeah, right. I know I have one in my foot, but just trying not to let it grow. Thanks, genetics.
Don't grow.
Right.
So anyway, nfocusathletics.com, and I'll link it in the show notes and on the Instagram, because if you're in the Denver metro area and you have pain and suffering, or just pain, she's not a lawyer.
Right. No pain and suffering. She's also not a therapist.
Right.
But I mean, it's kind of like the same thing as like going to the hair salon or getting your nails done. I'm sure you can bitch and vent about your day.
Kind of, but also you just very much can relax and not talk at all. So,
right.
Anyway,
there's also that.
It's great. It's great. So just letting you know that I'm going to be relaxed.
Okay, good.
Relaxed oomph.
Relaxed umphy.
Yes.
All right, Mom, what's your disturbing fact tonight?
Have you ever heard of St. Anthony's fire?
Is that like St. Elmo's fire?
It is not like St. Elmo's fire. Because I'm pretty sure St. Elmo's fire is like combustion in the universe.
I thought it was a movie.
It is also a movie starring Rob Lowe and Demi Moore and Emilio Estevez and some other brat packers like Andrew McCarthy and I don't know. I can't remember. It's old. It's a movie. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But actually St. Elmo's fire is like some kind of combustion in the universe, which we can look it up and tell you what that is. But my disturbing fact is called St. Anthony's fire.
Okay. Never heard of it.
I'm guessing that you've never heard of. It is ergotism, which is an illness caused by moldy rye grain.
Ew.
It has a rye grain has a fungus containing ergotamine. Here we go. It was back in the day when people didn't have when there was no FDA.
Right.
So there was no quality control. And so people didn't know that the rye was moldy that they were getting. Because I guess it doesn't really look moldy per se, but it has the ergotism in it. And then it causes ergotism because it has the ergotamine. Oh gosh. It has the fungus in it that makes you go crazy. So people would buy the grain, the rye grain, and then they'd make their bread. And we're talking like ancient times, right? So we're talking like pre-Renaissance.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, God, that sucks because I love rye bread. I'm already having to give up so many of my favorite things due to these disturbing facts that we're listing off. So I'm like, shit, I don't know if I can part ways with rye bread. I love a good Reuben. Marbled rye only.
We're talking about like 944, the current era.
Okay.
So like we're in 2023.
Yeah.
So 944.
It was a long ass time ago.
Yeah, it was a minute or two ago.
Right.
And it was also called the Black Plague, but it was less known as the Black Plague. So anyway, so people would buy the contaminated rye that they didn't know was contaminated, and then they would grind it and make it into flour to make their bread. And they would get the ergotism, and it was called St. Anthony's fire, which is also known as holy fire or internal fire or the Black Plague. And it was the most common illness in the Middle Ages, and waves of the outbreak occurred throughout this period, sickening millions and killing tens of thousands of people. So the outbreaks were usually a result of larger quantities of rye grain being grown in increasing numbers, and then the people eating the contaminated rye flour who obviously got poisoned and then they got sick, and it would make them go crazy. It would make them itch and burn to the point where people would want to cut off their limbs because it hurt so bad.
Fuck
And
that.
they would get like sores and welts, and
Did you say that this was the Black Plague?
Well, it was also known as the Black Plague.
Okay, that's scary.
Yeah. So in 1596, so
a long minute after this.
Yeah, a German physician figured out what was causing it. So
this existed for a long time.
It existed for a long time.
And it probably still happens today, I'd betcha.
Well, I don't know, because we have the FDA now.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean bad shit's not happening.
Right. But on the flip side, small doses of the ergot can produce strong contractions when women are in labor to help induce labor. But that didn't happen until like 1582. So them discovering that the ergot was what was causing the St. Elmo's fire, if you will. But again, St. Anthony's. Jeez.
You said St. Elmo's.
I got it because you know what? I'm relaxed. I'm relaxed oomphy.
I'm relaxed oomphy.
So anyway, yeah, that was it.
That's interesting, but it's good that they found the cure and the cause to that, because that's scary, just thinking you're eating your bread and then all of a sudden you want to cut off your arms.
Right, and you're having hallucinations and convulsions and muscle cramps and nausea and vomiting, and you can't sleep, obviously, because you're nauseous and vomiting and wanting to cut off your limbs.
Right. So fuck that.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
So
yeah. But thankfully, like you said, we have the FDA. Doesn't mean it's actually doing its job, but we have the FDA, so I don't have to give up my marbled rye and Reubens.
You do not. You do not.
Reubens with corned beef only. Just saying.
Just saying. So that's St. Anthony's fire. And there were treatments for it later on when they finally figured out what it was. Then they could figure out how to treat it. And then they could also understand what was causing it and help prevent it that way too.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think, there's no refrigeration. There's no like cold storage. You cut the grain, the rye, right? And then you put it in like baskets or whatever you put it in. And then you just keep it. And if it gets wet or moist or you live in a humid area. There wasn't any way to
preserve it.
Yeah.
In its mint condition.
Yeah. And you live in a humid area or, there's mouse shit or who knows what. Sorry.
Gross.
But anyway.
That's my number one phobia.
Again, pre-FDA.
Not their shit, but them. I hate them. Well, thank you, Mom.
You're welcome.
That was interesting.
You are very welcome.
Who knew?
Well, now I want to know what St. Elmo's fire. So we're going to pause for an informational break.
Okay, so we just looked up St. Elmo's fire. It's also called witch fire or witch's fire, and it's a weather phenomenon in which luminous plasma is created by a corona discharge from a rod-like object such as a mast spire, chimney, or animal horn in an atmospheric electric field. It's also been observed on the leading edges of airplanes, as in the case of the British Airways Flight 09 or 009, sorry. sorry. And it says that the intensity of the effect is a blue or violet glow around the object, and it often has a hissing or a buzzing sound. Wow, I can't English.
Different than usual.
And is right, and is proportional to the strength of an electric field, or noticed like during thunderstorms or volcanic eruptions.
Oh, that's cool.
So apparently, if you're a sailor and you see it happen, find shelter immediately.
On your boat in the open sea.
It's what it says.
Okie dokie. Also, a movie from 1985 with Rob Lowe, Demi Moore, Ali Sheedy, Emilio Estevez, Andrew McCarthy, and Judd Nelson.
Love Judd Nelson.
Love Rob Lowe.
I know you do.
All right. Daph, what do you have for us today?
So today I have the story of Terry Jo Dupperault. I think that's how you say her name. Dupperault?
I don't know why you're looking at me.
I don't know.
Names are hard.
Names are really hard.
We always say that.
So she was an 11-year-old girl.
Aw.
And her father was Arthur. He was 40, a successful contact lens optometrist. And the family lived in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Her mom was Jean, who was 38. Brian was her older brother, who was 14. And Renee was her younger sister, who was 7. He had a dream of taking his family on a week-long cruise to the Florida Keys, or from the Florida Keys to the Bahamas, which he sailed during his World War II service.
Okay.
And for several years, the family saved up money for this dream vacation.
So, like, what year is this?
So by summer of 1961, they had saved up enough money to finance the cruise.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Which they planned to spend a week and dock at several locations. So they opted to leave in November, which they left specifically November 8th of 1961.
Hurricane season?
Well, they wanted to avoid the cold, the winters in Wisconsin.
Gotcha.
So they wanted to get away. And, you know, like I said, it was the dad's dream. It was Arthur's dream to take his family. So they boarded the Bluebell ship, which was a 60-foot twin-masted sailing ketch based out of Fort Lauderdale, which at this day it was stationed at the Bahia Mar Marina on, again, Wednesday, November 8th, 1961, in which they rented this boat for the week for $515.
Oh, that's cool. So the dad was going to sail it.
Yeah.
Because he was like a sailor, obviously. Because I thought you meant like a cruise, like Carnival cruise.
No.
Or like Royal Caribbean or Disney.
No, nothing like that.
No, that sounds cool. I would really like to do that.
Do something like that?
Yeah, with an experienced salesperson.
So
Captain.
Arthur hired a local yachtsman who was 44-year-old Julian Harvey. And he was also a former World War II vet and a pilot in the Korean War. And he was hired to be their captain for $100 a day. And then his sixth wife, she was a former stewardess. And so she was hired to cook on the boat.
His sixth wife?
His sixth wife.
Okay, that's vital information, clearly.
His sixth wife, she was hired to serve as a cook. And this was Mary Dean Harvey.
Okay. Wow, 6 wives.
I know, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of women's names to remember.
Well, never mind. It's
a lot of divorce paperwork and marriage paperwork.
That's what I was going to say. Like, after the first couple times when you just be like, screw it, can we just live together, please?
Right. You'd think. So over the next 4 days, the group headed east towards the tiny island chain of Bimini. Then they headed further east to Sandy Point, a village on the southwestern tip of the Great Abaco Island. They spent the entire week snorkeling and collecting shells on the beautiful beaches, grabbing souvenirs for their friends back home. And then on November 12th, which was the final day before returning to Florida, this was early Sunday morning, Arthur and Harvey, Julian Harvey, this captain, they stopped at the office of the Sandy Point Village Commissioner Roderick W. Pinder to fill out their forms for leaving the Bahamas and returning back to the United States, kind of like we have to do on airplanes.
Right.
They did that. And he told the commissioner, he said, this has been a once-in-a-lifetime trip. We'll be back before Christmas. And then that night, Mary Dean, she prepared a dinner of chicken cacciatore.
Chicken cacciatore.
Cacciatore. Oh, I wasn't too far off.
No, you weren't. You could say cacciatore.
I've heard them say it on Desperate Housewives before, so I was
chicken
like, I know.
Cacciatore makes it more fancy.
And a salad. And
what kind of a salad?
I don't know what kind of a salad.
Okay.
But this was the last meal that was ever going to be served on the Bluebell.
That sounds ominous.
So shortly after, 11-year-old Terry, she went back to her below deck sleeping cabin as her family and the Harveys, they remained on the deck. And then at approximately 2:35 on Monday, November 13th, a crew member aboard the oil tank Gulf Lion saw a man waving frantically from a dinghy drifting in their direction and shouting, "Help, I have a dead baby on board." Then they pulled the man aboard, and the crew members did see the body of a little red-headed girl that was a young girl, and she was wearing a life jacket inside the dinghy.
Aww.
The man identified himself as Julian Harvey, and he was a skipper of the Bluebell. Harvey explained that at approximately 8:30 the previous evening, that the vessel was hit by a really strong squall that caused the Bluebell to rapidly keel over.
Oof.
And the main mast to snap at a location between the Abaco Islands and the Great Stirrup Cay, which had slightly injured his wife, hurt the family of the Dupperaults, and that it pierced the ship's hull, is what he was saying.
Jeez.
So, according to him, he was completely separated from the others by this falling mast, and the result of the loose rigging, which then pulled down the mizzen, and then he attempted to retrieve a wire cutter from the cabin to clear the deck space.
Mm-hmm.
But then a fire broke out, and he wasn't able to rescue anyone.
That sounds very tragic.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah. Especially if it's true. But
So-
I'm just gonna wager that perhaps something more sinister happened.
Something more ominous. So he was obviously had to get on the dinghy alone by himself. And that's when he was drifting alone. That's when he saw the body of 7-year-old Renee Dupperault in the water. He had retrieved her body and he unsuccessfully tried to revive her. But unfortunately, she did pass away.
That's so sad.
Isn't that horrible?
I hate that.
So he decided to keep her body alongside him till he was rescued.
Well, that was nice of him.
Right. Then he was taken to Nassau. Is that how you say it? In the Bahamas? That's what I thought. I just always question the way I say things. He was questioned by the authorities there, and his dinghy had been filled with various survival equipment and rationed meals, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Rations, is that what you call them?
Yes.
Like the camping?
Yeah, rations.
Yeah, so various just supplies of that nature, which led to obviously people doubting his story. But his story couldn't be disproven, and then he was allowed to return to Miami on November 15th to face further questioning from the Coast Guard.
Okay, so I have a thought and or question, and I was thinking of it when you said that people would think that maybe something more sinister happened because he seemed prepared. But if you have a dinghy on a boat and you know you're going to need it because you're probably going to be in some sort of life-threatening situation where you need to get off the boat, because I realized...
Wouldn't you have that stuff in the dinghy?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You'd be prepared for something like that. But also, sometimes they just take the dinghy, if it's they can't dock or whatever because it's too shallow for the big boat.
Yeah.
And then they just take a little dinghy in and it's no big deal. But again, I mean,
Right.
And he was in 2 wars, right? Korean War and World War II.
Yeah, so he'd probably know to be prepared.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah, you would think, although he was a pilot, but...
Yeah, but okay. But he's still okay. But I think that's probably not what happened. But I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't heard this story, but I'm guessing since it's a story.
Well, case, whatever.
Since it's something bad.
Since it's something bad, yeah.
Yeah.
So 3 days later, on November 16th, a child was rescued in the Northwest Providence Channel by the Greek freighter Captain Theo. His second officer, who was Nikolaus, and I don't want to attempt to say his last name, so I'll just call him Nikolaus S.
Okay.
Observed this little girl floating on a 2x5 foot cork float, and she was about 1 mile. Nikolaus immediately summoned the Captain Theo. Maybe it was a different captain. Anyway.
Where were they?
He grabbed somebody.
They were off
the Northwest Providence Channel.
Okay.
Anyway, so they gradually realized that this was not like a fishing vessel or anything of that nature. This was not, another boat out there. That this was somebody floating in a raft.
Aw.
They saw a young blonde-haired child dressed in a white cotton blouse and her pink corduroy slacks, leaning backward and waving like crazy. The captain ordered for their engines to stop, and they lowered a life raft. And they were screaming at her like, do not jump in the water and swim to us, because there were sharks circling her.
Ooh.
Yeah. So then immediately they lifted her onto their boat, and she was hoisted aboard and she was placed in the spare cabin. And then when she got into the boat, they discovered that she was incoherent. She was hardly able to speak. She was given water and orange juice, and they gave her like a sponge bath. Like they wiped her off her body because she was covered in salt. They gave her wet towels, and then they also put Vaseline on her lips.
Aw.
But she was
Poor little
coherent.
thing.
She was coherent enough to identify herself as 11-year-old Terry Jo,
Okay.
which I'm sure you saw that coming.
I did at that point. In the beginning, I thought, oh gosh, something bad's going to happen to Terry Jo. Well, not that this isn't something bad.
Right. So she had informed the crew that she had been floating abroad on the cork for several days after her vessel sank.
So what day was that? Did you say in the beginning what day, Niklaus?
It was November 16th.
Okay, and so...
They found him on the 13th.
Right, I was going to say, so it was at least...
Yeah, they found him on the 13th
Yeah,
the next morning.
Yeah, because it was at least the 12th to the 16th or the 13th to the 16th. So it was 3 to 4 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's lucky.
She's very lucky. So, unfortunately, though, she began to not be able to speak. And then she responded to questions, just really weak gestures, before she went into a semi-comatose state.
Ugh, poor little Terry Jo.
I know, it's so sad.
It's terrible.
So the crew captain, Theo, he didn't get the cork upon when they had grabbed her. However, he did have a member of the Coast Guard go and retrieve the raft several days later, to which it had almost fallen apart and disintegrated in those people's hands.
Wow.
So it was said that when she was on this raft, that she was sitting all the way on it at first, mostly in an upright position, but all the way on it. Mm-hmm. And then eventually it was disintegrating so badly that she had to start to put her feet off to the side of it.
Oh, over the course of those 3 to 4 days?
Yeah.
Oh.
That it was just disintegrating because of the salt water.
That's terrible.
So he immediately, Captain Theo, informed the U.S. Coast Guard of this discovery, and she was airlifted to Miami, to the Miami hospital, and she was suffering from severe sunburns, dehydration, and exposure.
I bet she was.
And they put her in critical condition. So eventually she began to recuperate. Over the next 2 days, she wasn't able to give any information. She wasn't able to say anything. She was still, recovering. But then the Coast Guard, started questioning her, and about the truth of what had actually happened to her family and Mary Dean Harvey. Because on November 16th, the day that she was rescued, right? Mm-hmm. They informed to Julie and Harvey, hey, we thought you were the sole survivor of this.
But guess what?
You're not, right? Somebody else has made it. And so he reiterated his story to the Coast Guard investigators that, there was a small fire that was started due to unfortunate circumstances.
St. Elmo's fire.
Right, basically. And he claimed that he had found Renee's body floating in the water and that he had unsuccessfully tried to, revive her, and that he was just doing the best he can. He got separated from everyone else. So by November 20th, Terry Jo, she had regained enough of her strength to tell the investigators about what happened on the Bluebell. Mm-hmm. So
I think we better hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, no shit.
Buckle in.
Buckle in for this one. This is a ride.
Yeah, because I'm guessing if he has this is his sixth wife, and he's trying to not have a sixth wife,
nothing good could have come of this.
Yeah, he might have been willing to take out anything and anyone in order to... But I'm just speculating. But okay, I'm fastening my seatbelt.
Good, as you should.
And should I put on the life vest?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably. And, if worst case scenario, an oxygen mask may drop from the ceiling above you.
Place the mask over your nose and mouth before assisting others.
Yes. So this is her recount of the events that happened. She said that late on November 12th, the Bluebell began its return back to Fort Lauderdale. And at around 9 p.m., she had gone to the lower cabin to sleep. Her parents and the Harveys and her siblings, they remained on the deck. Mm-hmm. And she said that Renee normally slept with her downstairs, but she didn't this night. Like, she wanted to stay awake. It was their last night on the boat, right, with her family. Mm-hmm. And she said that later in the evening, she was awakened by the sounds of her brother screaming and calling for her dad. "Help, Daddy, help!" And heavy footsteps. And she completely was just like disoriented at this point. And so she laid in her bed, and then all of a sudden she heard nothing. So about 5 minutes later, she left her bed and went above deck, where she saw her mother and brother laying in a pool of blood in the main cabin.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
So she recounted that the kitchen and the dining room were the same during the day, but then they were converted into a bedroom at night, and that's where her family was sleeping, except for her and her little sister were downstairs, right? And she just instantly knew that they were dead. And then she asked Julian, she's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he told her, he's like, "Just go back to your cabin, sweetie. Just go back to your cabin," right? Well, that's one report that I read. That was just hey, just go back to your cabin. It's all okay. You know, it's all fine. Just go back to your cabin.
I guess she got lucky because he could have taken her out too.
But then I also read that he hit her over the head and told her to get back to her cabin.
Oof.
So she returned to her cabin, right? She crawled back into her bunk, and then soon she smelled a bunch of oil and water began seeping into her cabin. And this was when she realized that, shit, we're sinking. Mm-hmm. So, but she was like really afraid to move at the same time.
Yeah.
So
I can understand.
She exited her cabin, and then suddenly she saw the captain's dark, like his just shadow figure, if you will, like just his outline. Mm-hmm. And he stood looking down at her with something in his hands. She believes it was her brother's rifle, but that he said nothing to her. And then he turned around and he walked out of the cabin, and she heard him climb up the stairs back to the upper deck. And then, at this point, she's got water just coming on top of her mattress. So she decided it was time to abandon her cabin. Mm-hmm. And at this point, the water's waist deep, and she's like climbing up the top steps to get above deck. Climbing to the steps to get above deck, sorry.
No, I gotcha. Sorry, I'm just like sitting on the edge of my seat riveted. Because this is unfolding in a bad way, which I knew it was going to, but...
Yeah, fucked up.
Yeah, poor Terry Jo.
So she saw that the ship's dinghy and rubber life raft were floating beside the boat on the port side. Mm. And she called out to him to ask, she's like, "Are we sinking?" And he's like, "Yes." And he pushed the line of the dinghy into her hands and said, "Hold this." But, she's fucking freaked out. So the line slipped between her fingers. And at this point, she's holding the rope that's keeping the dinghy onto the boat. And so it's just floating away. So he jumped into the water and chased after, he swam after the dinghy and got onto it. And then she said that he just disappeared into the night.
Fucker.
But she remembered the cork life float that was, kept latched onto the side of the main cabin. And now they were just like, she was just barely above water, right? Mm-hmm. So she grabbed it, she untied it, and then just as it became like free so she could get on it, the boat began to sink beneath her feet into the ocean.
Shit.
So she's half crawling, half swimming, and she pushed like the float into the open water so she could get away. And
yeah, because it would have sucked her down.
Yeah, it absolutely would have sucked her down.
Ugh.
So she said as she climbed onto the float that one of its lines snagged onto the sinking ship.
Oh, shit.
And for a moment, she and the float were pulled underwater as the Bluebell went down.
Shit.
But then the line came free.
Thank God.
She and the float popped back up to the surface.
Thank God.
I know.
Somebody was watching out for her.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Fucking Julian. Stupid piece of shit.
Right, absolutely stupid piece of shit. So these are the recounts of her days of when she's floating. They're really sad.
Okay.
So on Monday morning, this is the following morning, she said that the temperature quickly rose. Must have been about 85 degrees. And then that the sun was scorching her. And that this is when it started to disintegrate, which it was exposing her legs and her feet. And she said she was being bit up by parrotfish.
That's so sad.
And then on Tuesday, she said she saw a small red plane that circled overhead, and she was waving at it for a long time. She was waving her blouse in the air. But at one point, it did dive in her direction. And at this point, you know, she's just waving it crazy, like just totally being in hope that, you know, these people are going to reach out and grab her.
Right, that they see her.
But then it passed directly over her, which was close enough that she could see the details of its underside. But she thinks that it was like such a slim chance that they would have been able to spot her because she's wearing a white shirt. The raft is white. And she's waving, you know, she's waving this white shirt, but she was also wearing it at some point, too, when she started waving, right?
Right.
And with the white caps of the ocean, she's like, there's just no way that she thought that, you know, they'd be able to see her.
And obviously they didn't.
Obviously, yeah. So then that afternoon, she said that she saw ghostly shapes about 30 yards from her floating, and they were just beneath the water surface. And then she said that they came closer, and they were porpoises.
Oh, that's good.
And she felt like really comforted by this experience.
No kidding.
And she was like, I prayed to God and, you know, thanked him for sending them. And they remained close by for hours next to her as she was floating. Yeah.
Gosh. I mean, that's awesome, but so sad at the same time.
Right. And then at nighttime, it brought back the darkness, you know, obviously. And then she said it was also like relieving to her body that she was in the dark finally.
Right.
Because the sun was just scorching her. And she said that night she had a dream, and in her dream she saw her father, and he had a glass of red wine, and she had never tasted wine, but she thought it looked really refreshing and that it would be really nice to have a glass of wine because she was so thirsty.
No shit.
And she heard his voice call out to her, "Come on, Terry Jo, we're leaving."
Aww.
In her dream.
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
I know. This one's fucking sad.
Yeah, why would you?
Why would I do this to you?
Yeah. As soon as you said 11 in the beginning, I'm like, ugh, I don't want it.
So on Wednesday, it grew really hot. And she said that the glare of the sun, like on the water, was making her eyes really painful. Her muscles really hurt. Her skin was burning through her blouse and her pants.
Ugh.
Her lips were swollen. And then she said that this is when she had to start balancing rigidly because it was so unsteady, the float was. And the rope had like broken off and she was hallucinating like crazy. She was imagining a tiny desert with a solitary palm tree, and she tried paddling toward it, but it disappeared as she got closer to it.
Jeez.
And then she fell unconscious on this day.
Poor thing.
And then on Thursday, she didn't feel the sun at all. She was in a very deep sleep. She said that she was close to the brink of death.
It sounds like it.
And
so we're 4 days because you said Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Remember,
this is day 4.
I couldn't gauge.
Yeah, this is day 4.
Remember, we couldn't know, but apparently you did because you already did your research.
Yes, this is day 4. And then she said that mid-morning on day 4, she opened her eyes and it was a huge shadow, like a great beast was over top of her. And its rumble was so deep she could feel the pounding rhythm in her chest. And then she watched as she saw a vessel floating above a great whale into a solid black wall suspended in the air above her. And when she looked at the top of the great wall, she saw heads and waving arms. So this is her rescuers.
Right.
Yeah. And finally, she got her, they helped her up, and strong arms lifted her up slowly as she slid back into her, like, comatose state that she was in before.
Thing. This is so freaking sad.
Yeah, it is. So at this
Fucking
point...
Julian, stupid piece of shit.
Yeah, he's a fucking prick.
Yeah.
On his November 17th interrogation, he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy she's alive. Isn't that great?" This is what he had to say about it.
I bet he said it, but he wasn't thinking it.
So she was adamant that the Bluebell was intact. There had been no fire, that the sea was calm throughout every single day of, their vacation. So when she was informed that Harvey was alive and he was picked up 3 days before her, alongside her sister's dead body, she had also been informed at this point that her parents, her brother, and Mary Dean were all lost at sea.
God, how this, and Words. I just keep thinking too how like it was supposed to be a family vacation and the dad saved up for it. And this is something that they really wanted. And like they were all looking forward to and they were having a great time. And
right,
then on the last
enjoying
day,
themselves.
Yeah. And then on the last day, this stupid fucking piece of shit pulls this.
So midway through his interrogation on the 17th also, they had informed him, besides the fact that he was like, oh, this is great that she's alive, right? He's so excited that she made it.
I'll bet.
He asked to be excused from further interrogation after they informed him that there would be an official investigation launched into the Bluebell.
Wow.
And he was like, I'm just tired and I want to speak with my wife's family. I should be granted that, right? She's passed away at this point. She's lost at sea.
Fuck her.
I should be granted that. So he drove toward Biscayne Boulevard where he checked into the Sandman Motel and he used the name John Monroe. He paid cash for his room.
Weird. An alias and paid cash.
Right. And then he wrote a 2-page note before he slashed his thigh, his ankles, and his jugular vein. And this was all, a razor blade was found in his motel room. And then his body was found about 2 hours later alongside his suicide notes, and a maid found his body. So one of these notes has, or both of these notes, I'm sorry.
I feel like suicide's just too good for that motherfucker.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit.
He needed to be like actually punished.
Yeah, you'd think.
Fucking, and also he's a giant fucking man baby doing all that fucking bullshit and then not being willing to take the punishment.
Yeah, he is a giant man baby.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a gnat.
Yeah, there's a gnat again. Sorry, I just got distracted.
When I was going to smack it earlier, but then I'm like, no, we don't need gnat radio again.
Gnat's gone wild. So he left his suicide note to a friend from his military days, which was found on the dresser, and it was like by his body.
He deserves no friends either. Stupid
right.
asshole.
Yeah, he's a stupid prick. It ended with this. I got too tired and nervous. I couldn't stand it any longer. And it was also asked in this note that his friend from his service days took care of his 14-year-old son, Lance, and that he wanted to be put to rest in the ocean at sea.
Yeah, fuck you. You don't get anything. Somebody needs to take care of Lance, but...
Right.
Yeah, you don't get a... Blah.
So obviously, like I said before, they were doing an investigation, right? They'd opened up an investigation into the Bluebell because of Terry Jo's, her
version of events.
Yeah, because of her events. But obviously, the only other person to make it out alive just killed themselves, is no longer alive. So they decided to look into Harvey's history at this point.
Too bad the dad didn't do that.
Right? So obviously we knew, like I said before, he was a World War II veteran and a Korean War pilot. It said that he had difficulties holding a job for any length of time. He had serious money issues, and he had arranged a double indemnity.
Double indemnity, yes.
Indemnity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Insurance policy.
Yeah, I just feel like that was
On
a hard
Mary
word
Jo.
to say. Yeah.
Accidental death.
For just 2 months prior to their July 1961 marriage. So they're just recently married at this point. So just 1 month prior to the Bluebell incident, or to them sailing out, he had been hired by the vessel's owner, who was Harold Pegg, to take any tourists to sea upon their desired locations for $300 a month. And he got a free accommodation on the boat. And they think that at this time, this is when he came up with the idea to murder his wife. And then the tourists would play valuable witnesses to corroborate his claims. But when this was happening, his first clients were the Dupperault family.
Fuck. Well, and honestly, that person who owned the boat should have done a background check.
Yeah, no shit.
Ugh.
So
The 60s.
Right, fucking A. Well, this would have been like the late 50s too, that they should have looked into his background too, about the insurance. About the insurance claim, or 1960, or for any of his prior women.
Prior women.
Prior wives. So they concluded that, he'd planned to kill his wife and collect her $20,000 double indemnity insurance policy, which would yield double the insurance if she died accidentally.
Right. So 40 grand.
But they believe that he was in the act of murdering his wife or like throwing her overboard or some shit when Arthur witnessed what was going on. And then Harvey proceeded to kill Arthur, then Jean, and then Brian, and then Renee, or in some fashion or order, you know, who could have also witnessed the murder. And then, but I feel like because of what Terry said that she heard her brother calling out for her dad, that perhaps it was the brother who went first.
Or maybe the brother saw the dad getting killed.
Yeah. But he said help.
Oh.
He was screaming help.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. It's all bad.
And they believe that he had also probably retrieved Renee's body and put it in the raft, like if he saw her floating, because she could have floated by him, you know? To add credibility to his story of, you know, my wife accidentally died, like, you know, like the vessel caught on fire, blah, blah, blah. But they did an autopsy on Renee. Obviously, she's the only one that's body came back. And it did reveal that she did die of drowning. Maybe he like had hit her or something and she didn't actually die until they started sinking.
Right. Or maybe she was just still alive and sleeping or something and didn't get as lucky as Terry Jo.
Right.
As lucky as Terry Jo.
Yeah.
I don't
She's
know.
got someone looking over her. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's so fucking
So
sad.
they said upon, you know, doing this entire investigation that had he have not committed suicide, he would have definitely gone away for all of these murders.
Good.
And the attempted murder
However-
of Terry Jo. Yeah, however.
He had to crybaby bedwetter out on it.
Right.
Fucker.
And then when they continued searching into his history, they found that he had survived a 1949 car accident that had killed the second of his previous 5 wives. And
That's
her
not
mother.
suspicious.
And her mother.
Did he have life insurance on them?
We're getting there.
Okay.
He had been driving and they'd gone off a bridge in a 1946 Plymouth Deluxe at a high speed into a bayou on a rainy night. And then he got to safety, which he left his wife Joan and her mother Myrtle May Burgess Boylan to drown.
Fucker.
Also, one of his yawls, the Torbatros, had previously sunk after running into the submerged wreckage of a warship San Marcos, which had sunk in 1911 in shallow water within Chesapeake Bay. The crew members on this board repeatedly warned him to steer away, steer away, steer away, but he repeatedly navigated the vessel around the prohibited site, claiming to his cruise passengers to be attempting to read an inscription on the buoy marking the site.
Fuck.
So his powerboat, the Valiant, had also sunk under some suspicious circumstances off the coast of Cuba in 1958. And all of these losses, he got large insurance settlements from, right? Yeah, he benefited off of all of these tragedies.
Right. So you said he couldn't hold a job, but apparently he could.
Apparently he could. It was insurance fraud.
Right? Fucker.
Yeah, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
He sucks a big wad.
Yeah, a lot of big wad. And it just really pisses me off that he committed suicide.
Yeah, well, you know, he's a coward.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, he's obviously just a cowardly piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what he would have done, honestly, though, if, like, she wouldn't have lived, if she wouldn't have made it.
Well, he would have married another 6 people and off them for money.
Yeah, but at some point, like, you would think that the vessel's owner, that he would have a look into this, right? Because he's like, what the fuck happened to my boat?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
I don't know.
It's so sad and so
It's
scary.
terrible.
So after, you know, obviously her family had passed away, she returned to Green Bay to live with her father, sister, her grandmother, and her 3 cousins in De Pere. I don't know.
I like your accent.
De Pere. She refused to part with the outfit that she was wearing that day.
Well, pink cords, duh.
And then the following year, she changed her name to Ter. Instead of Terry, she's now
I got
Ter.
it. Sorry, I didn't
So
mean to look confused, but I was just like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be referring to her as Ter from now on.
Okay.
She changed her name because she didn't want to be seen as a victim. And due to contemporary psychological coping strategies of the 60s, you know, they didn't really speak to Terry Jo about her ordeal, and she received no trauma counseling.
Gosh.
So she didn't ever speak publicly about the loss of her family or the ordeals for over 20 years.
God, that just sucks.
So Terry Jo, she later remarried and or not remarried, just married. Sorry.
That's okay.
She later married and she had 3 kids. As an adult, she chose to live and work close to the ocean, and she is now retired and she lives in Kewaunee, Wisconsin. Kewaunee.
Can you say it with a
Kewaunee. In 2010, she released a memoir. It's called Alone, Orphaned in the Ocean, in which it was co-authored with a psychologist and survival expert named Richard Logan. And this book details her family's final cruise, the murder of her family and Julie and Harvey's wife, and the 3.5 days she spent drifting upon the cork float leading to her rescue and her life since. And
I have chills.
so some individuals, including writer Earl Stanley Gardner, they think that he didn't murder Terry Jo or Terry Jo because he had speculated that maybe he subconsciously wanted to get caught. However, Richard Logan, who she wrote the book with, believes that he actually intended to kill her. When she accidentally dropped the rope to his dinghy, he was forced to dive overboard and prevent it floating away without him.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's like he has a choice between taking her out or he might be taken out too because the boat is sinking.
Right.
So he had the self-preservation going on and was just hoping that she wouldn't survive.
Sink. Yeah. He just thought that she would sink to death.
Right.
So we don't really know if he intended to kill her or not.
Stupid motherfucker.
We can assume that he probably did at this point, considering he took out everyone else.
Stupid motherfuckers. Considering you took out a lot of people.
Yeah, that's why I said everyone else.
Well, I thought you just meant on the boat, but...
Well, everyone else on the boat. But yeah, he's taken out a lot of people. He took out one of his late wives and her mom and other people on vessels. Actually, I don't know if he killed anyone else on vessels, but I think he just got insurance money off of them getting fucked up.
Yeah, being damaged.
Yeah. So 49 years, Terry Jo, she agreed to go on a television morning show with Matt Lauer.
Matt Lauer.
I thought I said it right. Matt Lauer.
The Today Show.
Oh, was that what it was? It's the Today Show. So she said to him, I think I probably would go down with the ship. I think he probably thought I would go down with the ship.
Mm-hmm. That's what I think he thought.
And she also said that her belief that Harvey had originally intended to discreetly murder his wife and dispose of the body, and later claimed that she was lost at sea, but that his wife likely fought off her husband, and this attracted attention of her family, and, then all went down from there.
Yeah.
And Terry Jo has also stated that she does not wish for people to reflect around her ordeal and go, gee, that poor little girl, like you're doing.
Well, it's fucking sad. I'm sorry, Terry Jo.
But rather to think to themselves, she has gone on with her life. And she also said that this is crazy, this quote. I always believed I was saved for a reason. If one person heals from a life tragedy, after reading my story, my journey will have been worth it.
Oh, it chills. I got chills again.
I see that.
Yeah, because, okay, so I do keep saying poor Terry Jo because it is fucking sad as fuck.
Horrible.
But somebody was really looking out for her.
Oh, yeah. She's got a higher power on her side.
Yeah,
for damn sure.
Her guardian angel.
Absolutely tragic what happened to her family, that she couldn't get justice for her family.
Mm-hmm.
But, she did go on to live a good life and believe she's still alive.
She didn't play the pity party.
She didn't play the pity party, poor victim for life.
Right.
She moved on and enjoyed her life. And
had a good, positive
outlook.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the case.
Okay.
I had just never heard of it before, and I thought it was really interesting. And
I haven't heard of it either.
There wasn't so much information on it out there, and some conflicting reports, like if he hit her over the head or if he didn't. Also haven't read the book, but I can link the book in the show notes if anyone's interested.
Yeah, you totally should.
I just don't think personally I could bring myself to read it, because it sounds like when I'm reading articles about this, right, it feels like a sense of detachment,
right, versus, it's disconnected,
right, versus reading her words about it, which might just send me into a tailspin.
Yeah. Well, we're not allowed to feel sad or sorry,
right?
We just have to
move on, be grateful she's alive,
like she did.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the case, Mama.
Okay. I don't want to say I like it because I hate it when we say I liked it.
It was interesting.
You delivered it very well.
It was interesting, yeah.
And I like the outcome.
I liked the outcome, too, that she lived and went on with her life and had a good one.
Yeah.
Had
I
a
don't
good
like that he
ride.
committed suicide because he's a fucking cowardly piece of shit.
I don't like
And
that.
I don't like that he killed her family and two of his previous wives. And yeah,
Right. Why couldn't he take them back and just be like, oh my God, she tried to kill me and then I killed her. It was self-defense. He had to like fucking kill everyone else.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all
Why did
bad
he have to just kill her in the first place?
for money.
Yeah, because he wanted insurance money, stupid douche.
Yeah. His job that he could keep.
Right. The only job he could keep. Collecting insurance money because of fraud.
Fucker.
Yeah.
Well, thank
douchebag.
you.
Absolutely. And you're listening to this, Terry Jo. Rock on.
No shit.
Yeah, I hope I delivered your story in the way that you would have liked to have heard it. Because I've never heard your story before, and it's not a great one, but good for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. An angel was definitely watching out for her.
Oh, yeah. Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy, 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 crazy. But
So crazy.
she made it.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, truly. It kind of reminds me of that movie. What movie is it? The one with Shailene Woodley and, crap, why am I forgetting his name? Sam Claflin.
And they're on the raft or whatever.
They're on the boat. And
I survived or...
it was based on a true story.
Yeah.
That they're sailing and then they come into a proper accident. But then she's floating on the raft and hallucinating.
Sunstroke will do that to you.
Yeah.
And dehydration and...
Yeah, heat
shock.
stroke, absolutely.
Yeah. All of it.
Yeah, it's horrible.
That's terrible.
Well, thank you for listening, Mama.
Sure. And how I said I was going to sleep well because of the Magna wave. Now all I can think about is a poor little girl in pink corduroy waving down a plane that passes her over. So thanks for that.
I told you we could do a spooky one. And you said, no, give me some true crime.
Yeah. Give me some meat. You gave me some meat today.
I did. I gave you a lot of meat and a meat I've never heard before.
Right.
Oh, and she's called the Ocean Orphan.
Well, that's not
That's
fucking
her
depressing.
nickname. That is her nickname she's been given is the Ocean Orphan. I believe that's what it is.
Well, thanks for icing the cake.
Oh, Sea Orphan.
Okay, so totally different.
Yeah, AKA the Sea Orphan.
Okay.
But you know what? She did the damn thing.
She did.
She lived.
She did. She lived. She
conquered.
actually lived.
Yeah, she conquered.
Yeah.
Good
So-
for her.
Way to go, Terry Jo. Terry Jo.
Terry Jo. All right. Well, you can follow us on Instagram at That's Disturbing Podcast. You can send us a case request form on our website or DM it to us or send it to our Gmail. Gmail is That's Disturbing Podcast at gmail.com. The website is That's Disturbing Podcast.com.
And That's disturbing.
because we're disturbing. Bye-bye.